Xavier and Nektarea. All right.
I enjoy how much digitally bigger I am than you, Zave.
Yeah, that is definitely not to scale.
This is the first time in my life I've ever been taller than anyone. I'm taking it.
I didn't approve this slide. I don't think.
All right. I'll give a bit of background on both of them. So Xavier Shay is a Swinburne alum, tech leader and software engineer. In 2019, he returned from scaling Square in the US to be a part of building Australia's biggest and fastest growing digital bank, Up. Xavier's interests include disruption, culture, and leadership, and he's a passionate runner and vegan. Nektarea Cameron-Smith is the head of customer experience at Up. She's a champion for customer-led, data-driven decision-making. Passionate about people, she's obsessed with building authentic customer relationships that deliver deliberate and consistent experiences. Combining empathy and analytics, Nektarea has a track record in customer advocacy roles, previously representing the voice of the customer at Transurban before moving to Up to help shape customer experience strategy. Everyone, please welcome Xavier and Nektarea.
Hello.
Over to you two.
Thank you for having us. I'll just got a couple of cheeky slides. I'll get them going. Give us a second. There. Play. There we go. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks a lot for having us. Really excited to hear Kate speak as well about digital audio production. Been one of my lockdown hobbies. So it's been a heap of fun messing around the computer, but I don't think you'll be seeing any of it released anytime soon. I'm pretty terrible, but anyway, I try and put my talents elsewhere, which is hopefully what we can talk a little bit about today. So we're both from Up, building a new digital banking experience in Australia. And today wanted to sort of talk a little bit about innovation in the sector, what it means to us, and try and peel back the curtain a little bit on, what does innovation mean and how can we sort of approach it from more than just this like black box of a thing. So are there any, do we have any upsiders in the audience? I guess crowd work's not going to work when I can't see chat. So I'm going to assume that there's a couple of hands up. Great, excellent, good to see. Hopefully we'll get some more by the end. So where Up came from, or what we're trying to do is take people from a place where money is a cause of stress and anxiety to a place where they really feel in control and actually have a bit of fun with it. And, we've been described as doing some pretty innovative things. And I want to talk about where that sort of come from and our process to get there. So that there are lots of things that go into innovation. You have to be able to execute, you have to be able to scale. But today we really wanted to focus on sort of the identification phase of actually identifying where some opportunities are, where some sort of rich veins to mine could be. And so with Up, we've created this app that today is very popular. It works very well for people. But if you rewind sort of 2 or 3 years before Up existed, and you looked at the stats, you saw something surprising. So this is a stat, this is from about a 2018 survey, that 85 or 84% of young Australians don't find their bank helpful in helping them save money. And this for me is quite shocking, because if you think about, who is best positioned to be able to do this, kind of feels like it should be your bank. Like, it's where your money is. They can see all of your money coming in and money going out. Like, they're in such a good position. You're already presumably trusting them quite a lot because, you put your money with them. And so banks really should be in a position to do this, but they weren't. And this sort of discrepancy, when you sort of notice this thing where you're like, hey, this thing should be true, but I'm seeing a stat telling me something else, that should be a bit of an alarm bell or something that dings in your head to say, hey, maybe there's something here. So that's sort of a quantitative approach. Qualitatively, when you can approach it from a similar way, if you sort of line up the problem and the solution, where the problem is help me manage my finances, and the solution that people are applying to that problem or that are available to them to that problem, historically have been things like, well, you have a transactional bank account or you have a savings account. And what I actually want to do is help me manage my finances. But there's this mismatch here where the solutions, they don't they're not really solving the key they're solving some problems, but they're not solving this big overarching problem that I have, which is, yeah, I need to store my money somewhere, but that's one small problem. It's part of a much bigger problem, which is how do I manage my finances? So this problem solution mismatch is something that I'm going to keep coming back to today as a way that you can identify an opportunity for innovation and sort of an approach to doing it. So what we did when we were creating Up was we said, all right, well, we're going to have a transactional bank account. We're going to have a savings account, but that's not how we're positioning the solution. We're looking at this problem of help me manage my finances, and we're going to let that drive our features and how we actually, pull this together into a holistic thing that people really love. And so that's led to features like automatic monthly summaries. So calculating how much money came in, how much money went out, how much money did you save this month? These are questions which we felt should be pretty easy to answer, but historically haven't been. I've in the past pulled transaction CSVs out of my bank and made spreadsheets to figure this out. And I'm lucky enough that I know how to do that and have the patience to do it. Not a lot of people do. But this seems fundamental to being able to understand and get in control of your money. Automatically identifying upcoming bills. So you know how much money you're probably going to need over the next month. So all of these things, in order to do those features, we have to sort of be involved in the bank account part of it, but really we put the focus on the tools that actually better align the solution that we're giving people with the problem that they have. The ability to create multiple savings accounts. Typically people have one bank account and one savings account. Why? Why don't you have 100 savings accounts? Maybe 100's overkill, but I know people who that's how they manage their finances. I'm good with 3. That's the Goldilocks amount for me, but it shouldn't matter. You should be able to create them, label them, close them. Like this seems like in this day and age, that should be a thing that people could do. So we did it. We made it so people could do it. And it's, come together into this thing that, is described as innovative and people really like. So I want to run through another example of applying this, because joint accounts so we started with just a regular for individuals type account, and joint accounts has been our number 1 requested feature. Everybody wants a joint account. And this has been historically, this has been our top requested feature for ages. But when looking at this, it would have been easy to just say, oh, great, well, joint accounts, let's just launch a joint account too, because that's what people want. But with innovation, you can't just rest on your initial insight. You have to continually apply this process of saying, okay, well, joint accounts is a solution. What's the problem? And can we identify any mismatches in how that's currently set up in the industry? And can we do something perhaps a little better? And so if you look at, we also look at the data, which helps sort of identify these sorts of mismatches. And, if we've got more than half of people are in a relationship where they're presumably sharing some finances and a potential case for having some sort of joint account product, but only 1 in 8 people have a joint account, that feels like an opportunity. That feels like there's something here that isn't being done well. Maybe we can do it better. To put it in the same framing as before, the problem has moved from help me manage my finances to help us manage our finances. And then if you go back to how joint accounts are traditionally positioned, or as it's a shared legal liability for a bank account. And that's not really a thing that many people are legitimately looking for. And that can help explain why it's typically the last thing that people get in a relationship rather than one of the first, even though potentially they should be getting something earlier because they are sharing their finances earlier. So put all this in the hopper, rolled it around, tried to say, how can we better approach the problem that more people are having, which is help us manage our finances. And we've come up with 2 up, which we just launched this week, actually. We launched it on Monday. So it's available now if you're interested in it. And this is our take on, I'd say it's our take on joint accounts, but I think that kind of undersells it, because yes, there's a joint account in the background, but for us, this is our take on what is a good way to manage finances as a couple or as a partnership. And we've approached it in such a way that, the features really directly address that, help us manage finances together. So from an information perspective, like seeing who's spending, and then all the same insights and trackers that we have for our single player experience. But even if we're managing it together, then when we're talking to support, we want that to be a joint thread. We don't want to have to write in individually and then figure out how to get the other person involved. It should just be all integrated. And the other thing is that, you know, a big thing about joint accounts is by default, you lose a lot of, you know, individuality and individual privacy going to a joint account. And that's not really a good fit for people. That's not really what a lot of people want. And we wanted to design this experience that could be more applicable for more people earlier on in their relationships, everywhere from we're sharing money to pay for dates, to we're sharing grocery bills, to we're sharing rent, all the way to maybe a full comminglement, but maybe not. And so for us, making it really quick to set up and really easy to shut down as well, were really important to sort of reduce that perceived commitment barrier around joint accounts. Like there shouldn't have to be this binary, either our finances are separate, we manage things kind of fuzzily in the middle, and then we're fully commingled. There was no support in the middle. And so again, by lining up this problem statement of we're trying to manage finances together, but we're actually still individuals, we're able to come up with something that we believe is going to be much more compelling, but the initial reception is telling us that it is much more compelling. We've seen really, really good uptake on this, and people seem to be really digging in. So that's a couple of examples of how we sort of apply this approach of you know, looking for these problem solution mismatches on the feature side of things. But what's really important as well is to go further than that and look more into processes and, you know, across the business, how are people interacting with what we're doing, and how can we do things differently across the board? And to talk more about that, I want to kick it over to Nektarea.
Awesome, thanks, Dave. I'll share my screen. Cool, can you see that?
Yep.
Sweet. So innovation solves problems that like you didn't even know that you had. Like Xavier just presented two up. I never thought that I would have a joint account. I am a control freak and I'm a private lady, and I don't need my partner knowing how much I spend on houseplants. But it's been great, and I don't need to use Splitwise anymore, and that has been heaven. But what I want to talk to you about today is that sometimes new stuff can come with unintended consequences. Like, let's take instant payments, for example. It's been a huge game changer. I don't know how many of us would remember waiting 2 to 3 days for cash to get into your account. It's too long. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Mid last year, a customer reached out to us asking for help because she'd blocked her ex's number, and now all of a sudden he was sending her a bunch of payments with messages that she did not want. But we weren't the only bank experiencing this issue. The same time this customer reached out to us, the Australian Banking Authority issued a statement because it was still an issue industry-wide. It was and still is. So now kind of not only do you have to deal with creeps sliding into your DMs, now your bank isn't even a safe place if someone knows your details, which obviously is really bad. I guess the one thing that every single bank had in common when we all came across this issue was that we wanted to do something about it. So a lot of banks jumped into action to support customers and to stop people from getting harassed, which is amazing. But this is where Xavier's problem and solution mismatch comes into play, because compared to how other banks approached it, we tackled this problem pretty differently. So the banks that did tackle this problem, they all had a pretty similar approach. What they did is that they identified a bunch of keywords, the majority of them being like naughty swear words, and they blocked you from sending them. They found that abuse was generally linked to low value payments and abusive language. So for example, if you send your mate $1 and call them a shithead in the description, you might get blocked, banned, or warned. So far, CBA has actually blocked over 100,000 payments that contained words that they felt might be linked to abuse, which is generally swear words. And a bunch of banks are getting ready to do the same thing. I guess when we came across that as the common solution, we found it pretty interesting because I don't know if we completely agreed with I don't know, bad words equaling abuse. I mean, if someone swears at you, is it always abuse? If so, I think I might be in trouble a little bit. I mean, in Australia, it's pretty common to swear, I guess. Some people even use it as a term of endearment. I'm not trying to minimize the issue at all. I'm just saying that I don't think that we agreed with their approach or their narrow definition of what abuse looks like. So I guess for us to close that like problem and solution gap, we wanted to do our own research. So we wanted to start with the naughty words. We were like, okay, we hated the idea of stopping or blocking customers from being able to say whatever they wanted to say in payment descriptions, but we also didn't want to ignore it in case it was a problem that we weren't aware of. So we had a look under the hood, and it turns out our customers are an expressive and colorful bunch. Just taking a really quick sample of just these 3 keywords alone, and our customers have used these like spicy words over 30,000 times. But we weren't ready to say that this was potentially 30,000 cases of abuse. So we wanted to take a closer look, basically. And it turns out sending someone $1 and calling them a bitch wasn't often abuse. More often than not, actually, we came across mates just having a laugh and a bit of a back and forth. But to be sure, and to make sure that we were taking this seriously, we reviewed hundreds of payments that contained 1 or more flagged words. And we were drowning in false positives. So in the end, actually, what we ended up with was less than 5% of the transactions that we reviewed contained any signs of abuse or unwanted communication. Okay, if we're not looking for swear words to help customers and protect customers, how are we detecting abuse? So what we found in our research was that a way more common pattern for accurately detecting abuse had nothing to do with swear words. It was actually way more commonly linked to low value one-way payments. What I mean by that is, for example, if I send Xav 10 1-cent payments and he doesn't send me anything in return, it turns out I'm probably not generous, but I might be a jerk. So when we actually focused in on that pattern, like one-way payments across our entire customer base, we actually increased our accuracy of identifying abuse from 5% to 70%. So in tweaking that logic, we found that there was a way more, abuse was way more complex than people sending each other a bunch of swear words. Here is an example of abuse that we uncovered when we stopped looking for keywords and focused on one-way low-value payments. One customer had actually received over 350 low-value payments from the same contact. Another customer had received over 100. The one thing that both of these customers had in common is that not one of the messages that they were sent from this contact contained a single swear word. So now we knew that if we had just gone ahead and blocked people from using a bunch of, phrases or swear words, we wouldn't really be addressing the problem. I feel like we could probably all agree, and anyone just really thinking about it, that abuse is super complex. It doesn't always look or sound the same. Sometimes telling someone to fuck off is just as triggering as saying, hey, please call me. At the end of the day, all that really mattered was that we were protecting our customers from receiving unwanted communication. So for us, now that we really felt confident that we understood the problem and how to detect it using some smart technology and better logic, we wanted to address the final part of the puzzle and bring in the experts. Because I think it's important to note when tackling this that at the end of the day, we can have really strong feelings and we can do a bunch of customer research, but none of us are social workers and no one on our team has worked in family or domestic violence. So before we landed on our solution, we collaborated with 1-800-RESPECT and Our Watch, which are both national amazing organizations that help people that are dealing with family or domestic violence and protection. And I think that for us, the importance of having a collaborative design approach that pulled in industry experts was that sometimes when trying to do something new or innovative, it's super important to know when you're not the expert and you want to deliver something that's actually right. So for us, putting all of that together, our customer research, some smart technology, and our collaborative design process, this is what we landed on to solve the problem of customers getting unwanted communication. First off, let me be super clear. We don't care if you call your mate a dickhead when you send them $5. All good. We actually kind of wanted to be more like the big dogs. And when I say big dogs, I'm not talking about big four. I'm more so talking about like WhatsApp, Facebook, and Twitter. I mean, when you think about it, all of these other apps, if you don't want someone to contact you, you just block them. It's super easy. It turns out in banking that it's not that easy. The way that the instant payment network was built, it means that you actually can't block payments coming through from other banks. Even when we found that out, we were just like, yeah, okay, cool. But we didn't want to stop there. So we shipped two things that are pretty cool and no one else is doing it just yet, but they should. The first is we shipped a feature that lets you block payments coming in from another up account because we can absolutely control payments between up customers. The other thing that we did for unwanted payments coming in from another bank is we shipped a feature called payment muting. So this won't stop a payment from landing in your account, but what it will do is it will remove their name, it will remove their message, and it will stop you from receiving any notifications. So someone's not blowing up your notifications. So effectively, our customers now have two ways to put someone in the bin. You can block them or you can mute them. But if that's not cutting it, we also support customers starting fresh. We'll give them a new pay ID or get them a new bank account if someone knows their details and they just don't want to deal with it. But also, in addition to kind of these proactive things that we let customers do in-app, behind the scenes, we're still proactively monitoring one-way payments. So if we kind of pick up on anything that doesn't look right, we'll reach out to a customer and offer them support. But if you're the one that's doing the bad thing, you get a one-time chance to stop it or we'll put you in the bin. And I think the important thing to note there is something that's pretty common in the industry at the moment, or not just the industry, like there's this no tolerance approach to abuse, and we absolutely have a no tolerance approach to abuse. But we're actually pretty confident at the moment that our app is the best place for customers to be protected from this kind of behavior. So in giving someone a warning instead of just kicking them off our app, what we're actually able to do, and what we do is tag someone that sent an abusive message and monitor their account to make sure they don't do it again. If we were to just delete them and make it another bank's problem, they could just easily do it from somewhere else. But what we do know from all of our other research is that people don't really like changing banks. So in keeping someone with us and making sure they do the right thing, we're actually going to be more effective at stopping someone from sending abuse to the person initially or anyone else in the future. So I guess to wrap things up, if we want anyone to take anything away from this, is that sometimes a great place to look for innovation is in finding a broken solution and taking the time to really understand the problem. Ignore the thing I said about not changing banks. If any of you aren't with Up, you should be with Up. If you're not already a customer, you should be a customer. And it doesn't take much to try us out. It's literally 3 minutes. And if you use the code Swinburne when you sign up, we'll give you $10. I mean, what's not to love? Thanks so much for having us. Xavier and I will now kind of switch to questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, there's a couple in the...
Thanks, guys. Yeah. That was fantastic. And I'll just start off by saying I'm already a customer with Up, so damn, I miss out. But as someone that went from being with one of the big four to changing to Up, so I still have my CBA account, for example, and I've got one with Up. I found it was really useful, at least for me, to be able to have different banks with different accounts that had different features. So for example, for Up, I sort of keep all my savings in there and don't have too much of my everyday spending. And while I know that's what your platform is more used for, sort of everyday spending and budgeting, I find it just useful having a separate, different bank that isn't associated with anything else, that just offers something a little bit different. Probably one of my favorite features would be the personalization and that those little touches that go into the app, whether it's being able to block or mute someone, or the the logo of Woolworths coming up when you tap the transaction, just the little things that made the app feel really well developed, and that you guys have put a lot of time and effort into building a really good platform that actually challenged, I guess, the big four or sort of traditional financial institutions. So I'll move on to a couple of questions. So we got one from Daryl. Are you looking at a share platform, example Superhero, so a share trading platform?
Yeah, and there was another question in the Q&A that was also related around investment as well, which I see as similar. And I think that the way to answer that is like, ultimately, yes, as far as, we think that we really want to help people manage their finances, and of course, investment is going to be a part of that. But it's not something that we necessarily need or want to rush into. We want to really understand, again, applying that lens of, okay, what are the problems here? A Superhero or somebody else solving those problems really well. Do we partner with them? Do we do it ourselves? I think a good example of this, not in the investment space, but for sending international payments, we partnered with TransferWise, because when we're looking at the space, we're saying, okay, what problems are there? What solutions? And similar to what Nektarea was saying around, finding the experts, we actually found somebody who's already doing it really well. And for us, it's, well, how do we bring these solutions to our customers? And so we actually partnered with, they're Wise now, sorry, partnered with Wise for our international currency for sending money internationally. And so, yeah, it's there, it's part of the plan, probably not in the short term. We're just sort of really making sure we nail the savings and spending experiences and the two up and that sort of thing. There was another one, Ben, I saw here about from Michelle. Do you mind if I answer that as well? I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, we'll go through all of these.
So Michelle asks, younger generations have been told not to spend money on smashed avo, so we'll be able to afford housing. Is it that simple? What could we be saving our money on? This is a really great question. I'm not going to answer it directly. I'm not a financial advisor, and you probably don't want me answering this question. But I think there's something in this question, which is, I actually think there's a prerequisite to this. So before knowing what you should save money on, you need to know what you are spending money on. And that's where I think we've been able to really focus on that transparency of, for so many people, they were finding that their bank account was kind of this black hole. And their money went into it when they got paid, and then the month or the 2 weeks went by and the money sort of all just disappeared. And so we've tried really hard to make it so that everything from getting notifications, I got a notification this morning that my Netflix bill got paid. Now that's something, it's a good reminder. Oh yeah, I'm spending X amount of dollars on Netflix every month. Whereas previously that would have just been a silent thing that would have stacked up with all the other subscriptions that I might have. So from that to, as Ben mentioned, having things like the Woolworths logo, so it's actually very clear that that was my shopping, to automatically aggregating that into categories. So, if you want to go through and tag stuff and get more insight, you can, but just by default, we try and make it very easy to see what you are spending your money on. And I think what people find is once you can see that, it gives you a pretty good idea of where you could be saving money, or where your opportunities could be if you are looking to save a bit more money. The other part of that is there's also behavioral things. Like a common piece of advice from financial advisors is to pay yourself first, meaning this doesn't work for everybody, but when you get paid, take 10% of that, put in your savings. We have a feature called pay splitting, where you can automatically set, I want to send 1% of my salary into these different savers when it comes in. And so the money is pre-saved, if you like. And so, facilitating all of that behavior so that it just happens for you without you really having to think about it, enables you to sort of develop these habits and this insight that will allow you to figure out whatever goals you happen to have. So kind of a long-winded answer that wasn't a direct answer, but hopefully that was useful.
And I think just touching on that, and I already sort of alluded to this before, the effort that Up has gone into developing Up Bank and particularly the app and the platform that it sort of sits off is just astounding how well developed and how actually just it works. I know that probably, I'll give a rough estimate, once a fortnight, maybe twice a fortnight, there'll be a time where I can't log into my CommBank because they're doing maintenance or you know, an update or something. And most of the time it doesn't affect me, but the times it has, it's been really inconvenient. I haven't had access to my money.
Yeah.
And I think that's another one. I had a question sort of that comes to this before. How does Up conduct market research and find out what features customers are wanting that they aren't getting from the big four or traditional banks?
That's a good question. Nektarea, you might have something to add here, because I know you do a lot of experience on the voice of the customer stuff, but we're actually in a relatively good position that people tend to tell us. We really encourage customers to tell us what they think, not just, hey, I have a problem, but hey, I have an idea. And so, you know, we do have some bits and pieces about market research. It's probably not that interesting to talk about, but it's really combining, customers are telling us, but also like, this is a product that we all use ourselves. And so there's, you know, a lot of it, and I think particularly when you're starting something new, to the extent you can look at problems that you yourself have experienced and address them first, that can be a really cheap way to get started. Because if you're solving a problem for yourself, then you know you've got at least one customer. Nektarea, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think to add what you said, Zave, at the moment, customers reaching out to us for ideas is actually the third most common thing that customers reach out to us for, which is pretty astounding. We've got tens of thousands of ideas that customers have given us over the time, and sometimes it's an idea, sometimes it's a request. But the thing that we do is kind of like, we don't take it at face value, kind of like what Zave said around joint accounts. Joint accounts was our most asked for feature. So anytime we're kind of going through prioritization, it's really important that we look at what customers are asking for, but then we kind of look at what problem are they trying to solve for, and we kind of go through a process of kind of grouping and theming customer requests or customer ideas to really make sure that we're solving for the actual problem. So it's not the only thing that we rely on, but it's definitely a goldmine of insights that we use when thinking about what to work on next.
I think it's a little bit of reverse engineering there, turning the request back into sort of finding the problem. And what a great way as well, just to solve problems, grouping them. I'd never sort of thought of that concept, grouping them together by requests and then looking at what the actual problem is and seeing if you can go back and solve that first.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like Zave said it in his preso, I feel like if we relied on just doing exactly what our customers wanted us to do, we probably would just end up in the same position as a lot of the existing banks. So yeah, it's definitely part of our design process to sort of like challenge that problem space or really try to understand it.
We'll leave it there, guys. Thanks for that. That was really interesting. And just to hear from another Australian company that's up and coming and on its feet and growing is always a good thing, especially with the theme of this conference. So yeah, thanks, Xavier, and thanks, Nektarea.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now, to everyone who's still remaining in the conference, it's been a long day, so I thank you for your patience and I thank you for your attentiveness. And there's been some really excellent